The ex-president's 37-count indictment details 2 incidents at his New Jersey golf club in 2021, where he showed classified documents that he stole from the White House to random people. And then last week, we got the actual tape of one of those incidents when the ex-president showed a classified military planning document about Iran.
And, he said he wanted to attack Iran and what? These are the papers. This was done by the military, given to me. I think we can probably, right?
I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try to
declassify.
Figure out a yeah.
See, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, but this is classified.
It's secret, he said. It's classified. But after that tape was published last week, Trump tried to defend himself.
Are there any other recordings that we should be concerned of?
I don't know of any recordings that you should be concerned with, because I don't do things wrong. I do things right. I'm a legitimate person.
He is a legitimate person who does not do things wrong. But besides the evidence laid out in the indictment and besides the tape of Trump claiming to show a document on Iran that he says is secret, on Saturday, Trump's former White House press secretary said she saw her ex-boss show classified documents at Mar-a-Lago.
Look, you know Donald Trump. Is it plausible Trump was showing classified documents to people in private meetings?
The short answer is yes. I watched him show documents to people at Mar-a-Lago on the dining room patio. So he has no respect for classified information, never did.
Joining me once again, Harry Litman, Danya Perry, and Philip Perry. What do you make of Stephanie Grisham's statement that she saw Trump showing people classified documents at Mar-a-Lago?
I think it's really clear and credible. And look, it's interesting, Alicia, because to actually show documents that are classified is a whole different level of crime under the Espionage Act. That's actually the sort of thing. That's communication is enough. You don't have to turn it over if you actually show it to them. However, the indictment in paragraph 6 makes a big deal about those 2 incidents, as you said, in New Jersey, but they don't charge it. The same thing here. I think it's quite possible that they don't quite have this beyond a reasonable doubt. And yet, it's sort of like Danya was just saying about the corroboration of what kind of guy he is. Whether or not they have the witnesses who can actually say, I saw it exactly and this is what it said. It shows his absolute indifference to the national interest, his willingness to do it. That is a fair game for the U.S. to use, and from the indictment, we know they already will. Will there be a separate charge of actual dissemination? So far, we haven't seen it, and I think it's because they don't have the witnesses who can really say beyond a reasonable doubt, I saw it exactly. He brandishes things and shows them around and points toward them, but do we know that he actually said, look here, read this? It doesn't look as if Smith has that yet, but it doesn't totally matter. For the charges that he's bringing, it's really vivid evidence anyway, especially with an audio tape as you were playing.
Well, Danya, to Harry's point about potential additional witnesses, what do you make of the additional subpoenas in the ongoing documents investigation?
I agree with Harry once again that the government here is either looking to try and make a dissemination count or counts, or at least they're looking to beef up their unlawful or willful retention counts with this kind of information. And so we've been hearing about witness after witness who've been coming in that are talking about the way in which these documents were used. And even if there are not standalone counts because the government is unable to actually recover these documents, it can be used whether in a superseding indictment or just in the original indictment, as has already been issued. It can be hugely impactful for the reasons Harry said, and also because it would rebut any defenses of lack of knowledge or intent. It also provides some kind of a motive. I think everyone's been kind of casting around from what the motive is here. And motive is not an element of any of the crimes that have been charged already. But it has tremendous jury appeal, I think, to just be able to explain what was happening with these documents. Why did he have them? Why did he keep them? And as odd as it may seem that he used them, to brag or to brandish, as Harry said, it at least provides some kind of explanation for it. And that is always very helpful in front of a jury.
Yeah, some type of explanation, some type of context. I mean, Philip, all of this legal stuff is happening in the background or the foreground, depending on who you are of the 2024 presidential race. And you, like I, follow all of the polls, and the polls basically show Republican voters don't care about what Donald Trump did or didn't do. But I also have to say, we end up in the endless loop that we end up in every election cycle, where people learn how to lie with poll numbers and ignore things like margin of error. You have a new piece out where you write, Trump's lead is by no means insurmountable. That's you looking at the poll numbers. But it is more obviously insurmountable than similar leads from years past. Tell me what you mean about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have all these comparisons. Look at the way in which Bernie Sanders crept up on Hillary Clinton, right? Things like that, and it's just not comparable for a variety of reasons, including the fact that, first of all, Donald Trump is doing much better now than he ever did in 2016. 2016, he ended up getting about 45% of the vote total. Now he's consistently polling over 50%. He wasn't hitting 50% until later in the primary cycle last time. But also, it's important to remember, we have not, in the modern primary era, seen a scenario in which most of the people who are voting in this primary have already voted for this guy for president, right? These are already Trump voters. He's just trying to get them to vote for him one more time, and they appear very willing to do so. I mean, this goes back to the conversation we were just having. One of the foundational crises of the Trump administration was when he was on the patio at Mar-a-Lago, and something happened with North Korea, and I believe it was the Prime Minister of Japan was there, and he's all talking about it in front of all the people that were dining at Mar-a-Lago. This is a big thing. In like March 2017, we knew this was his approach. His supporters knew at that time that was the way in which he handled national security. No one cared. He got more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016. That has carried over. There's nothing that has happened that is going to happen almost certainly that's going to change that.